Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to our discussion on anger, strife, quarreling, according to Proverbs. Now, last time around, we saw one main point: slow to anger. Right? This call again and again to be slow to anger, to even be willing to overlook an offense. How hard and yet how necessary that is. And then when we look towards others fighting, even though we want to help, let's not be too quick to jump in, because it's like grabbing a dog by its ear. Now, with that said, I want to go a bit deeper on the subject of anger, quarreling, and strife. What we want to look at today is a couple of proverbs that really speak to its cause. Where does it come from? Its command, what should we do? And its consequences, what does it bring if we don't do it? Cause, command, consequences. We start with the cause. It says, whoever loves transgression loves strife. He who makes his door high seeks destruction. Now, this is one of these proverbs where one of the sayings, one of the parts, is difficult to understand. This one right here. We'll come back to that. We get the first part, right? It's the basic truth that the scripture tells us all the way through. Loving transgression is loving sin. That's what it means. To love giving into the flesh. Saying yes to the old man. Well, that means you'll be loving strife. Where does this anger and this quarreling comes from? The fact that you love, you justify, you give in to the flesh. Sin, transgressions. It's that simple. It's the fact you say yes to this evil heart that says you're justified, get angry. Well, then you will give in to the anger and you'll love it even. Now he says this is the same as, and then gives us a weird image of building up a door and being destroyed. What? Two ways to understand it. A figurative way, this is poetic language, or literally. Literally speaking about, if you try to build really big doors, don't think of a house as much as a fence door, a gate door. Well, if you try to build too big, it might come down and crush you. Yeah, I think it's more of the figurative sense. This is poetic language. Especially when this word here, high, is actually a word that means to be prideful, haughty. It speaks more of the attitude of the heart than literally building high doors. So he's probably saying this prideful attitude that must have the high door will end up destroying you. Because again, those who love sin will be given over to stuff like anger, and that will cause you some serious harm. But for now, we'll just put that in our pocket, the knowledge that there is consequences to loving this sin. Given over to us pride that says, I can do things my way. Because when you continue to focus on what is the cause, where does it come from? Our hearts? Yes. More than that. Yeah. For lack of wood, the fire goes out. And where there is no whisperer, quarreling ceases. As charcoal to hot embers and wood to fire, so is quarrelsome man for kindling strife. He's saying the same thing, but in two different ways. Two sides of the same coin. A more, if you could say, positive twist or negative twist. In the first part, the first proverb, he's telling us where does it come from. Actually, the second part. Where does it come from? Charcoal ignites fire. Well, in the first part, he tells us how is it kept alive. More wood, more fire. So how does it start? Charcoal. How does it continue? You keep adding more charcoal or more wood. So how does it start? How does it continue? Well, he says it's the same thing here. How does it start? Well, to have a quarrelsome man. It's not the first time the Proverbs describes the person by their very sin or value. The man of wisdom compared to the man of foolishness. It's who they are. It's how they're described because they love it so much. It's who they are. Well, they're the people themselves. There will always be exciting fights. That's what they want. That's what they love. There's always going to be starting a fight. And what's going to keep it going? It's to have the whisperer, a gossiper, someone who keeps poking the bear, if you will. Keeps exciting anger among us. So you have the person that has the anger and the person who excites the anger. That's where it's coming from. All from the evil heart. So we're getting a good picture. And like I said, it's one you can see throughout Scripture. That it comes from the heart. And it comes from the desire to get angry and to provoke anger in people. So now we know the cause. What should we do? Glad you asked. Make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. We've just seen that these quarrelsome men of anger, are those who are destructive. So it is normal that when we speak of this wrathful man and man of anger, the word here is not in the original, really it's man of anger. Well, don't make a friend with him. Don't have this fellowship. Don't go with them. Don't persist in fellowshipping with this person, because what's going to happen is you learn their ways. You're going to learn their ways, and your soul will be entangled. Here's the word actually, soul. Your very inner person, the inner man, will be choked out, and you become like them instead. See, this is why Paul, and Jesus, of course, tells us that when somebody is persistent in sin, I'm not talking about struggling with sin, persistent, unrepenting in sin, Matthew 18, 1 Corinthians 5, how do you respond to that? You cut them off. They must be separated from the church. You stop having fellowship. It seems harsh when Paul says that in 1 Corinthians 5, to stop having this fellowship with the person who is described as, given over to, persisting in sinful behavior, like here, anger. But it's not. Again, we're not talking about someone who's struggling. We all struggle. We're talking about somebody who is given over to it and isn't bothered by it. They'll empoison you. They're the leaven that will infect you and not the other way around. Cut yourself off. That's the command. That's the way to act. Also, the beginning of strife is like letting out water. So quit before the quarrel breaks out. So we saw how to deal with it in a corporate setting, but we also have to be honest with our own hearts. The first word actually in this verse is letting out water. An expression of water really gushing out, exploding out. Think of a dam who breaks apart, how all that water just comes at you. It's a vivid image. It's meant to really make us think of the destruction that's coming at us. That's what you should be thinking of in the beginning of a strife, the beginning of a fight. Instead of saying, oh, it's just a beginning, we're just raising up our voices. No, think this could become Second World War, Third World War. It could become explosive and dangerous. Envision that. Envision this exploding dam, water in your face. Just envision, see, this is the possibility when the fight begins. So that's the thought. You have to be that radical, and therefore you quit. Technically, this very word ends the verse. It really means to smite, to smash. Smash what? Your flesh. Your old man. That desire inside that says, I want to fight. I'm justified. Beat him down. Or, again, like Paul would say, put it to death. Put it to death. This quarrel and this breakout. Actually here the author is using two words of fighting. Quarreling, but also this word here really means being contentious. So he's like piling on all this fight word, showing us that it's not just a little fight, it's going to become a huge world war in a sense. Therefore, quit before. The word here literally means to turn your face away. Yeah, turn your face away. Just like when water is exploding in your face, your first reaction is to turn away because you don't want to get smashed in the face by this water. It should be the same thing here. You're seeing the fight begin. You envision it's going to become worse than you think. Therefore, you turn away and say no. You kill this inner man that says, I want to fight. I'm justified. No. You turn away. As much as you do not associate with those who are men of anger or women of anger, as much as you should recognize you in your own heart, stop. Stop. Man, is that hard? Especially in close relationships, friendships, church, couples. Stop. Put it to death. Don't justify it. These commands are important because, like I said, there's consequences when we give in to anger. A man of wrath stirs up strife, and when given to anger, causes much transgression. There's a sense here is we're kind of coming full circle. Coming full circle. There you go. Because we started with this notion that it's the man who loves transgressions that gives himself over to anger. Well, now we're coming the other way around, saying this person of anger who stirs it up, who excites it, who gives himself over to it, will excite more sin. So he loves sin, he will give himself over to anger. He loves anger so much, he will excite more sin, and we become a vicious cycle, spinning out of control, going downwards, worse and worse. That's what sin does. It never gets better when you give in to sin. Never does. It always gets worse. You give in to lust, and then you fall down a very deep, destructive rabbit hole. You give in to anger, same thing. Hope we're taking this seriously. Because there's another great consequences that kind of gives also a beautiful little command. Yeah, because it says, a man of great wrath will pay the penalty. For if you deliver him, you will only have to do it again. Like I said, it's kind of a mixture of both here. First, the consequence. This man of great wrath, he's really given over to sin. We've seen that. Well, he will have to pay the penalty. There will be consequences. There will be a judgment. He will be struck for the evil he has done. Sin brings punishment. There's no escaping that. Which is why on the flip side he says, for, maybe even better here, and, the little word here is actually kai, which has a notion of many types of word, for, and, but. I think it's preferable to see here, and if you deliver him, if you keep him from being punished, you'll have to do it again. Because punishment will teach him to stop. Punishment wakes us up to how destructive sin is. And if we keep that from happening, if we deliver people from it, I don't want it to be too hard. I don't want to do church discipline. They'll just keep going, keep hurting the church. It'll get worse. And you have to just keep doing it over and over again. So again, the more consequences, but also the command. So at this point, we now understand. First and foremost, anger comes from a heart that gives in to the impulses of, I'm right and I gotta fight. And more you kindle that, more you add to it, wood, charcoal, and more explosive it will become. Which is why in your own heart, you gotta step away. And you got to be careful who you fellowship with. If you fellowship with people who like to gossip and start fight, who divide the church, you're going to be part of those who divide. Stop. Don't fellowship. Because there's consequences. They will bring in a cycle of destructive sin, and that's why they must be punished for it. But if we don't act accordingly, it'll just keep getting worse and worse. You try to deliver them, you'll just have to come back to it. I hope these truths speak to your heart when it comes to this subject of anger, sin, but anger. On this note, brothers and sisters, be blessed.